So what does it take to make packaging for hemorrhoid cream funny and actually work off shelf? That's exactly what Monika Cascone pulled off with Anything But. So Monika, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to this project? How did this even come to life? And what can a young designer learn from not only your process, your approach, and how you deliver it, but how do you put your personality into the packaging that you design?
Yeah, I mean, so this was a project that I was leading on the agency side at Smash Brand. And a lot of sort of where the final things happen comes with working together with people in your own sort of circle, right? So it's working with strategy, it's working with copywriters, right? It's kind of coming up with the big idea. But at the same time, you have to have a client that's open to having fun, right? And this client in particular, they knew this was an embarrassing problem.
Must be so embarrassed.
They knew that this is something that people don't want to talk about, right? But especially in today's generation when we're all scrolling on our phones on our toilet, right? Let's be honest. Hemorrhoids happen, right? They happen to the best of us. And I think, when you're a sort of challenger brand like Anything But, right? Where, preparation H has been out there forever, right? That's what our moms, our dads, everybody's buying that, right? So how do we make a product that's healthier, better for you, better ingredients, but have fun at the same time and appeal to the younger generation that is able to have fun with this subject, right? It's why Dude Wives are doing so well, right? It's sort of a similar situation, right? We all have butts. We all do the things that we do. So how can we have fun with it? And when, you build a brand around something that speaks differently, that talks differently, that's better for you, that's really trying to, accomplish something in a very different way, then you start having those moments where like, oh my God, this is going to be great. This is going to be funny. And Anything But was one of those projects where my team and I, we were just laughing, dying the entire time. I mean, we have meetings where we had screenshots and everybody on camera is just like crying, laughing, right? Because you're having fun. And when you're having fun doing this job, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that room would be like, right? I mean, from the copywriting on this is amazing. Right? Say goodbye to butthole drama. Like, where do you see that anywhere on packaging?
Right.
Badass to badass, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when you're designing for a challenger brand, like, what's the first strategic step that you take that you make sure design is going to stand out and connect with the right audience? How do you uncover what really matters in that category?
Yeah, I mean, I think the steps, whether it's through the agency side, like we did on Anything But, or kind of on your own or freelancing or whatever. I mean, I think you have to look at who's your competition, right? Kind of doing the category audit. I think that's always one of the most important and crucial moments. It's like, who is our customer going to see? Whether they're online, right? They're searching online. I have hemorrhoids. What do I use, right? Or they're going store, right? They're walking the aisle and trying to see what's out there. You got to see what your competitors are doing. Right? Are they very serious? Are they very sterile? Are they funny? Are they different? Like, what is it that they're doing? Because really the most successful brands out there today, whether you're a challenger brand or a really well-established brand, are the ones that talk to the head and the heart of the consumer, right? So it's like saying, this brand is worth it, right? That's the head. But also, this brand is for me. Like, I love something about this brand and now I want it, right? I want this brand versus the other brand. And so if you can put those two things together, right, and really explain to the consumer why you should buy it and have something that they're going to love about it, that's when the magic happens.
All right. So once you've nailed that concept, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that the packaging doesn't just grab attention? Somebody grabs it and like, oh, this is so funny, this is so cute, and then puts it back on shelf and grabs that legacy product, right? How do you stay away from it getting into gimmick territory?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you never know what a consumer really wants, right? You don't know what it is exactly that's going to make them buy your product. In with Anything But, they also had amazing ingredients, right? It wasn't, it wasn't chemical based. It wasn't medically based, right? It's all about those healthy hemp ingredients, right? So there is that better for you aspect, right? So if you're comparing Anything But to Preparation H, there's the humor, there's the fun, there's the like, oh, I can see this brand is talking to what my language is. But at the same time, hey, these are actually better for you ingredients, right? I'm not putting something unnatural, something maybe bad for me on my most precious part of my body, right? So, there's different aspects. There's the fun, there's the colors, there's the packaging, there's the copy, and then there's the, if this works, this is actually better for me, right? So I think it's a combination of all those things.
Staying on Anything But, right? So it's a base and a lid, tin. It comes in a folding carton. So really basic structures. As a startup, a lot of times when somebody reaches out to me, they're like, oh, we want to create something completely new, right? And they wanted new shapes and new material. Like they want to be the newest, most innovative thing on the planet. But sometimes that's not the right answer. Does the client come say, this is the form factor, or does the team say, this is the form factor that we should use for these reasons?
It depends on the project. With anything but, they knew that they wanted to be in a tin. They knew it was going to be kind of a balm where you kind of feel it's not a squeezable tube like Preparation H, so it was a slightly different application. But sometimes, yes, clients have big ideas. I love big ideas. If I could do custom packaging for every project I work on, that would be fantastic. But budgets have to be realistic, right? And especially when you're, a startup, you're on your own brand, like, those MOQs, right? You can't fulfill those, right? You can't do things that are crazy. So that's when good design and uniqueness in your design, in your copy, in your graphics really comes in, because you can be in a standard tin or a standard box and still do something outstanding. It doesn't always have to be something custom to catch the consumer's attention.
How do you have that conversation with the customer about the budget, right? In terms of they've got these huge ideas. This is what we can launch with now. This is what you can afford. And this is what's actually going to have some impact. Like, how do you have that conversation?
I've sort of had this conversation with many clients where, they want something and then we do it. And then they find manufacturers. They're like, oh my God, you guys were right. This is so expensive, right? So I think that's always a tough conversation to have. But you can do things on a budget that are still amazing, right? You can still have a label versus, printed on your packaging, right? You can still do amazing things with really good design. And at the end of the day, the consumer is not going to say, oh, well, I'm not buying this product because this is a sticker versus a printed carton, right? Or because it's on a tin versus a tube. I think if all your messaging, all your design, who you are, how you're talking to the consumer, whatever your special sauce is about your product, if you can explain that, if you're speaking to that head and to the heart, at the end of the day, the actual structural part of your packaging is going to be okay. And then when you grow and you have, proof of concept, you have proof of product, then let's do that super crazy packaging, right? Let's invest that money later on.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. All right, so that kind of creative freedom, like the power, the internal confidence to say, this is the direction we're going. You're leading the client and you're able to do all these different things. It doesn't happen overnight. So you've got a ton of experience to back it up. Like, can we rewind this just a little bit and get to the beginning? Like, how did you actually get started in packaging? Why packaging? And then what pulled you into the CPG world in the first place?
I've been in the packaging CPG space my entire creative career. I kind of fell in love with packaging in college. It was one of the classes that I took, and I was like, this is it. Like, I knew I wanted to do graphic design, but then I did a packaging project and I was like, oh my God, the gates opened, and that was the one for me. Took me a while to kind of get into the packaging space on the agency side. I did a lot of kind of advertising, direct mail, that kind of get your foot in the door kind of work when you're, just starting out in the industry. And then once I got into packaging, like, I know that's what I want to do forever. I'm not interested in doing kind of websites or digital stuff. Like, I want to be in CPG. I want to do packaging. I love the 3D aspect of it. So I spent my entire career pretty much on the agency side, working, in the WPP and Leo Burnett, and, working with all the really big kind of conglomerates out there. Then I went to a medium-sized agency for about a decade. And then in the last year, I was like, let's see what brand side is like. So I did that, and that obviously didn't work out very well for me because it ended up in a layoff. But here I am kind of trying to figure out what's next for me in 2026.
Our audience kind of skews wide. We've got younger, still in design school, coming out of design school, and then we've got senior designers. Let's start with the young end, right? So you go through school, you decide packaging is what you want to do. What do you do after school to land that job? And do you just take any job? Like, what's that process?
Yeah. So actually, like, my first job, I always say to people who are in college, the first job is the hardest one to get, right? Because you don't really have a book, you don't really know your style, who you are as a designer, right? So the first one is kind of like, let's just do it all, right? Let's dig in, let's learn from people. And so my first job was actually in recruitment advertising. So kind of a dead field today, right? Because everybody looks for jobs on LinkedIn and online. But I worked a lot in recruitment advertising. I did a lot of direct mail, a lot of posters, a lot of sort of that kind of work. Then after that, I moved after a few years to a smaller agency hired me that had a packaging side, but they also had a direct mail side. So I got in on the direct mail side because that's where I already had 2 years of experience. But I knew that packaging is what I wanted. Like I wanted to be on that other floor where the work was happening that I knew I was in love with. And I ended up just kind of talking to the creative director and saying, hey, packaging is what I want to do. Let me get on a project. Like I'll do it in my own time outside of the work that I was doing. And he kind of gave me a chance to work on the project. It was actually dry erase markers for Expo. And my design ended up being kind of chosen by the client. It's, through many iterations and stuff. And once that happened, the creative director was like, I want you on my team. And that was the beginning of my packaging journey. I kind of moved from one floor of that agency to the other and sort of been in packaging ever since.
Okay. One thing I see a lot of is young designers where they're saying, I'm a packaging designer. I don't want to do anything else. When a creative director asks me to lay out a poster, but I'm a packaging designer, they should talk to the graphic designer about that, not me. Right? And there's like this idea of this is the one thing that I do and I don't do anything else. But you're saying you went into this direct mail side, this recruitment side, because you wanted to get to packaging. And then when you're in the recruitment side, you take on a packaging project on your own time because that's your personal goal. That's what you want to get to.
Right.
So what would you say to a young designer now that's like, this is the field that I want to go in. Anybody that asks me something outside of that, it's not fair of them to ask me that.
I think that when you're a young designer, and like I said, you're just starting out, I think you should do it all. I think, that there is a certain level of detail, a certain level of craft that you just have to develop, right? And I did everything when I started. I did posters, I did direct mail, I did advertising, I did packaging, I did digital stuff, I did shopper marketing, like designing, whole aisles, shelf talkers. Like you just get your feet wet, right? I think if you're a good designer, the craft, getting your hands settled into the craft, and then it'll happen, right? You'll learn about typography. You'll learn about what looks good. You'll learn about hierarchy, right? All those things will always apply to packaging or to whatever that one thing is that you really want to do. So I think don't limit yourself. Just explore and be open-minded and learn.
You might realize, oh, I've focused on this, but I love video editing or I love, whatever it is. Until you get the opportunity to do it, you might not realize it. It's even it's something to do.
But honestly, for me, even today, like, yes, packaging, like I said, I love the craft. I love the three-dimensionality. I love that I can hold it in my hand, right? But, when I was on the agency side or even on the client side, like, yes, I'm still doing stuff to support our web assets, right? I'm still doing stuff to like make a poster for an expo, right? Or design a booth, right? You're still going to touch other aspects of design, even if packaging is the one thing you're focusing on. Like there's always little things you're going to touch.
Yeah. Like every time I go to the grocery store and I walk down the aisle, there's a new brand for this and I pick it up. I'm like, this is exciting. As a packaging designer, you want to buy that and you bring it home. Then you go back to the grocery store and there's like a new product that's there as well, especially in TPG, especially in candy, a lot of snack stuff. There's all sorts of cool things happening every single day. So for a young designer that's out there and they want to work with these emerging brands, how do you first vet the project before you say yes?
I try to understand what their end goal is. I try to understand who they are and what it is that they're wanting to accomplish, right? Like, do you just want to have another product that's similar to what is already on shelf, right? Are you actually doing something better? Are you actually doing something different? Because at the end of the day, I think if you have passion for your product, if you're like, oh, I'm really doing something that's going to solve this problem, right? Or I'm creating a product because my kid had this issue and I've solved this issue and I want to share it with other people, right? I love stories like that. I love people who develop brands that are really trying to, like I said, solve a problem, to be something better for this world, right? I think there's so many brands out there today where the ingredients are bad, the efficacy isn't there, right? Like it has food coloring, it has whatever things that we know are not good for the earth and we know are not good for our bodies. So if you're doing something that's not that, right? Like you're challenging the conglomerates of this world, right? Like you're saying, hey, I can do so many things for you as a consumer I want you to love my product. I know it's great, right? Those are the brands that I love talking to. And then we get into budgets, like what is realistic? Again, right? Like, do you have a budget in mind? Can I help you within this budget, right? I mean, there's brands that reach out to me and have a budget where I'm like, I can't do what you want me to do for this price point. Like that's just not possible. Yes, they reference 99 designs, or they can find a cheap freelancer out there. There's always going to be cheap work out there, but I think in CPG specifically, it is such a competitive world that you have one chance. Like if you launch your product and the copy isn't there, the strategy isn't there, design isn't there, you're dead immediately, right? So getting that step done right is crucial if you really want to be in the CPG world.
And I see a lot of people wanting to launch in CPG because it is exciting. It is fun. And we're seeing it. We're seeing Shark Tank and all the different things people see. Right. Super amped. But there's also a lot of losers in that space where you do launch and you launch with something fast. People don't understand. Yes, you could save on the design on the front end, but once it gets to market, if it doesn't sell, there's returns, there's return rates, there's discounted stuff, and it all costs the brand. And that can, that can end a brand. Besides the category audit, what's your discovery and kickoff process look like for these small, scrappy brands? Are there questions that you have to ask at the very beginning?
There are, yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to know who they think is their number one competitor, right? Because there's people always know, like, oh, if I could just steal a little bit of share from this brand, right, I would be a millionaire. So I want to understand who it is, right, that you're competing against. But also, what are the brands that you admire? And why do we admire them, right? Because we often hear, well, I want to be Apple. Well, okay, everybody wants to be Apple. Like, that's not realistic, right? So, like, well, what is it about Apple that you admire? Is it the simplicity of the design, right? Is it the price point because they're making millions and billions of dollars, right? Like, what is it that got you to where you are today? Why are you making this product? Who are your competitors? What do you admire? What kind of brands do you want to be, right? Do you just want to be the brand that is popular on TikTok, right? Goes viral and makes a lot of money and then just kind of grows from there? Do you want to be a brand that's known for solving a huge problem, for doing something different and better, right? Like, who is it that you really want to be? And I think that the most successful kind of smaller brands that I talk to that have a really clear vision for who they are today, but who they want to be, I can help them and guide them through the process of getting to where they want to be eventually.
As a freelancer, how do you keep a client on track? When you first start off a project, do you outline, here are all the steps and here's the timeline for everything? And then how do you stick to that? How do you keep them within the
I mean, I try to, right? I think that the issue with a lot of the smaller brands is like, okay, yes, I'm ready. Let's go, right? Let's do this. You get to the design phase, like we have a concept, we make some edits, right? We have an approved idea now. Let's get to print. And then a lot of times things stall, right? Because they're like, okay, well, maybe my printer now can't put us on the schedule until a while later. Or, oh, I realized with my co-packer that one of my ingredients or whatever it is, right, is out of stock, and things tend to stall. And that's just part of owning a small brand. Like, there is going to be roadblocks. You're going to run into things that perhaps you didn't plan to. I can be there with you, kind of hold your hand along the way. I mean, I had my own brand in kind of the early 2010s. So I've been there. I know what it's like. As much as I want to build a timeline and stick to it, I think with a lot of these smaller brands, sometimes there's challenges along the way that you just can't predict, and you have to be flexible.
Okay. So I know a lot of young designers, they've seen all the videos, and they see everybody talking about, you've got to lay out your process in 3 phases or 4 phases. You present 3 mood boards, and there's like, they see what professionals talk about and they try to stick to that. And they're like, if I don't stick to that, then I'm not professional. I'm letting the customer guide me. But the reality is it's not just cut and dry. So even before before the customer goes to the co-packer and runs into those problems, let's take a step back. When you've presented multiple concepts, how do you manage a client that says, well, now that I've seen this, I don't like it, right? It's I'll know it when I see it client. Like, how do you deal and how do you have that conversation with them?
Oh, that happens all the time, right? I mean, well, not all the time, but that does happen, right? Where you'll present ideas and you're excited about them. You think like, I solved this, right? And the client's like, wah, wah. And you're like, oh, right. But then it's a matter of like, don't let it hit your ego, right? Like, I have been on the agency side for so long that I have had clients hate things. I have had clients love things I didn't think they would love, right? So I think when you get sort of negative feedback from anyone, whether it's your client, agency side, freelance, whatever, let's talk about, okay, you don't like it. Well, tell me why, right? Let's get into the details of why. Is it you don't like the color because blue is a color you hate, right? Is it you don't like the logo because it's not, I don't know, expressive enough? Like, let's dig into what it is that you don't like. And I think when you start having that conversation of really understanding what and the why behind it, then you can really react to it in the next round, right? So it's not just like, oh, well, I don't like it, give me something else. It's really understanding the nuances of what the client doesn't like. Because sometimes they'll say, I don't like it, but it just comes down to, like I said, the color, or it comes down to the flavor image is too big, right? Or the logo, the font isn't the right vibe, right? So it's not always, I don't like it doesn't mean start from scratch. It's really understanding what it is that you didn't hit for them.
Anytime I present something, I always start off with, look, I'm going to show you 3 things. You're not going to love everything. You may even hate some of this stuff. But once we get through that, we'll figure out each one, what you like about each one, what you dislike about one, and really kind of just narrowing that down so we can get into the next phase.
And a lot of the times it's a mishmash. It's like a little from concept A, a little from concept C, but really the base of concept B. And sometimes that's magic happens, right? Like you think, like I think the designer will think I've solved it. This is amazing. Like how could they possibly not like it? But then as you get through the rounds of revisions, working closely with the client, what you end up at the end is very different than what we presented. And you realize, wow, this is so much better than what I thought my round 1 was, right? So you got to stay humble.
I love that because I've seen a lot of designers posting online and it makes young designers feel insecure where the designer will say, I only show one concept. And if we make changes or we make a new concept, I never Frankenstein them together because it's my vision. Most young designers are not in that position. And you are going to have to pull things from this one and pull things from that one. And you're going to end up with something better because you're not, one, as a young designer, even as an old designer, we don't know everything about that particular industry. We don't know everything about that particular customer. We try to, but just being open to, you're not going to end up with your initial design. You're going to have this conversation.
Most 99% of the time, it'll not be a round 1 concept A. But I think another thing to remember, if you're a startup brand owner, you need to love your product, right? Because as much as you've put everything of yourself into designing the product and what it is, you have to love the design because you're going to wear the sweatshirt, you're going to wear the cap, you're going to make marketing materials, right? You're going to go to Expo West or whatever other, thing out there and design a booth with all those graphics, right? So you have to love the design. I, as a designer, have to lead you into what will work for the consumer. How do we get that market share, right? How do we design something that explains who you are, but you have to love it. And my job as a designer is to make sure that you do. So if it's a mishmash of designs, if there's something you don't love about it, tell me, because this is your baby. And I'm just trying to create it for you.
You also don't want to hand something off that then they hand over to an internal designer or a 99 Design or Fiverr to be like, hey, I didn't really like these colors. Change it. When somebody works with you, what are your deliverables at phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? Like how do you break that up?
Yeah, so my phase 1 is a lot of sort of that strategic audit and strategic background. Like I want to show them, again, this is your category, this is your competition. But then let's also look at brands that maybe have faced a similar problem, a similar challenge, even if it's in different categories. And let's see how they've done it, right? Like what can we learn from what these brands have done in the past, right? So it's a lot of kind of looking at this kind of entire space of like, okay, what can I learn from all these different pieces and saying, okay, now that I have this sort of vision in front of me, here is what I think that vision means, right? Here is where I think we can be different. Here is what I think we can do better. And now let's apply those sort of strategic design things. And now let's look at concepts, right? And so I'm going to show you concepts. I'm going to show you those concepts, not just as a concept alone, but I'm going to kind of create a shelf for you of like, here's you and here's the competition you're next to on shelf, right? So now you start to really think about, okay, this guy has 20 grams of protein. I have 19 grams of protein, but I have 19 grams of protein, but all these other things, right? Like or, whatever it may be. I am also mango flavored, but I have mango flavored with natural flavors, and I'm screaming that out, versus there's mango flavor and it just says artificially flavored, right? Really tiny underneath, right? So it's like you really start to evaluate the designs, not just for what they are, but what they're going to look like in the environment that the customer is shopping in.
Looking at some of the packaging you've worked on a ton of packaging, and I love this, right? So you've got Rhythm, Sativa, and I'm looking over here because I've got this on my screen. Tell me a little bit about this project, right? Because you've got black cans, you've got white cans. I love the black top. There's nothing sexier than a black top on a can. So tell me about this project. What is it? How did you guys land on this?
So this was, Green Thumb Industries. Rhythm is a huge brand in the, THC space, and they wanted to come out with drinks, which was kind of new for them. And so how do we do that? And we know that, like, seltzers out there, like there's just so many seltzers, right? Like, I mean, White Claw has kind of started a revolution.
You're really gonna want a White Claw.
That space has exploded, and now it's exploding in the non-alcoholic space, right? Which is like a whole new thing kind of happening this year. But with Rhythm, they were like, okay, well, we're going to do, CBD, THC inspired drinks for different occasions. And how do we bring that into a brand that people who are marijuana users and who are already our customers know us and they love us? Like, we're known for good quality. So how do we translate that into the drink space? And we sort of, did that with, having typography that kind of shows the mood of what the product is gonna bring you into, right? We have Sativa that kind of has that like energetic, move to it, and we have Push that's kind of more for relaxing, right? And all those vibes. So it's really kind of bringing a lot of different sort of feelings to the typography to the brand, but then really exploding it with flavor. Like, we know people shop by flavor, right? We taste things with our eyes, right? And so it's really kind of a combination of kind of those vibes, right? That you experience on CBD and THC and everything that Rhythm has stood for until today, and bringing it into the drink space.
Yeah. And as I look at the can, I look at the box, you've got the strip across the top, and it gives you just a clear understanding of how many milligrams. And then you've got all the other information.
There's a lot of, regulations in this space as well, right? Because, you want to make sure that the consumer understands what they're buying, the amount that they're getting, right? Because the last thing you want to do is someone to not get what they're looking for or get too much. And of course, obviously making sure that the child doesn't touch this product, right? So there's a lot of nuances there as well.
Yeah. And that's like, that's a fun, exciting space. Then you also have the anything but, which is kind of it's not a fun and exciting space necessarily. It wasn't. It is now.
Right.
And then you've got like just the categories you don't even think of. Like, I've never even thought of working on packaging for this particular space. And that's tomato love. Cans of tomato. You're like, I see them at the store. I see them all over the place. And I never go, oh, this could be cool because it's just so everyday. And then you put together this packaging for tomato love. Won a couple of different awards for it. What's the process when you get into one of these categories?
Yeah, so canned tomatoes, right? I mean, could it be a more boring space, right? Like, yes, my mom buys it to make sauce or whatever recipe she's been pulling out of from her cookbook since the 90s, right? And it's kind of I would say, a dead space, right? It's kind of the same thing like Graza made olive oil exciting again, right? Like, how do you make tomatoes exciting again? And so here, Red Gold is one of the really good brands out there. They actually have a really great process. They have a really great product, but they have been kind of, stagnant and kind of the same design forever. And so they came to us on the agency side at Splash Brands, and they wanted something new. They wanted to appeal to the younger demographic, right? To the sort of millennials who are now cooking, right? They're moving in with their significant others and can't go out every night, right? Like, that's not realistic. So how do we make cooking exciting again? And so, I sort of, one of the things that I look at is, and I have that on my website, is sort of that different brands, they all have the same approach, right? The logo is on top, the product type is in the middle, and you have this boring image of tomatoes in a bowl, right? And they kind of don't look very appealing because chopped up tomatoes in a can are not that appealing, right? So how can we break that process? How do we do something different that when, someone younger is walking down the shelf, it kind of catches their eye, right? Like, oh, well, this is different. What's this all about? And that's how we came up with, the idea of tomato love. And, what's more fun than sort of tomatoes and chilies and peppers hugging and kissing and hanging out together, right? It's kind of a haha moment, right? But it still is that product. It is still diced tomatoes and green chilies, right? And it is 2 times the chilies and whatever it may be, right? And it's kind of having fun with the category, having fun with the product. I think it was a really successful launch of like, how do we talk to a different demographic and do something different in such a stagnant, boring category? And I think those are the kind of projects that are exciting, right? Like I said, it's those challenger brands, challenger ideas, right? Doing something different and saying, wow, I have a winner here.
It's funny, as you were talking, I had up on my screen the different brands, same approach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you don't typically think of when you're going down the aisle. And what you've got is you've got all these cans and you've broken it out. Like, it's super clear.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all the logo in the same placement. You've got all the product type. You've got all the product imagery in the exact same location, all the labels across. There's like 7 different brands from generic to popular, and they all follow that same format. So if you want to stand out,
from big brands to private label, they're all doing the same thing. Yeah,
and if you want to stand out, don't do that. Right? That's like step 1.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So as we talked through some of the process, some of the things that you're delivering, how do you get clients? Right? That's the one question freelancers always ask is, all right, I've got this portfolio, I've got my student work, I've got my first few clients. How do I land my next customer? How do I get a client? And I know we're all trying to figure this out.
Right.
What is your process?
Yeah, I don't have a perfect process for that either. Like I've mentioned to you before, I'm sort of newly on the freelance train, being laid off at the end of the year. And I'm still trying to figure it out. But I think the best way to approach presenting yourself, right? Because this is really, I am a brand also, right? Who am I? And what do I do that's better and different is figure out what your niche is, right? And showcase that. For me, it's doing packaging across all these different categories, doing it from a strategic standpoint, doing it from a very cool visual standpoint, right? And showcasing some of those results, right? When you have them, of course, because that's going to take time is to get real client sort of feedback and matrix, right? But knowing that like this design I did perform super well. Another design that I have in my portfolio for Jarjoy went viral and they did super well in the club in Costco. So I think it's about having sort of those matrix to put behind your work, but also present your work really well. Talk about what you did differently. Like, what is it that makes your design beautiful? Like, I'm someone who's like absolutely obsessed with details, right? Like, I'm constantly seeing brands where I'm like, why is the net weight wrong? Right? Like, why are the nutritional panels not the right size? Right? Or why is this logo that we know is like USDA logo or GMO, non-GMO? Why is it wrong? Why is it the wrong color? Right? Like, perfect your craft, right? Showcase work that there are mistakes in it. There is nothing that someone can say, oh, I know this isn't right. Like, really perfect what you're showing. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be real work. Like, I've told this to junior designers I've spoken to before. Find a brand on shelf and redo it, right? Put it in your portfolio and redo it. Do it better, right? Or just show your thinking. When I hire junior designers or even freelancers, when I used to be on the agency or client side, I want to see your process. Show me your concepts, right? Because like we just talked about, that round 1 is probably not where you end up, but I want to see your process. Did you show different ideas? How did you express them? Right? What does your typography look like? Did you think about hierarchy of information? I want to see, how you think as a designer and where sort of that attention to detail is that you have. And I think that's crucial. And if you can show that in your book through various ways of doing it, then clients will be attracted to that as well.
Okay. I love that. If you're submitting a portfolio to an agency as a young designer, a lot of times they don't want to show the process. They just want to show the glossy final image and they want to show 10 different projects. Right. And they may not all relate to each other. They may not even relate to the type of work that the agency does. But you're saying, show me that project and the process, all the rough stuff, all the bad stuff, how you got from idea, what you went through, what challenges you hit, and how you landed on that concept. How many different projects would you say is like a a good amount? Like I always think 3 to 4 of your best things that focus on that particular agency's work or brand's work. But do you feel more projects are better or less with more meat?
I think if you're really kind of starting out and you're really in those kind of first, up to 5 years of being in this industry, if you have 5 projects that are amazing and you've shown me this was my thinking, like this is what I looked at. These are the sketches. Like some people still love to sketch. Like I've never been a sketcher. I do digital sketches, right? Like these were my concepts and this is how I ended up at the final product. Like that's what I want to see, right? Because a junior designer, like they have been there through this process, but most of the time they had a creative director, a design director, whoever helping them throughout all those different steps, right? So if I am hiring you, I want to see your process. I want to know that even in round 1, your typography made sense, right? I want to know that your leading and your kerning were right. I want to know that when you were saying 12 grams of protein, that G was lowercase, not uppercase, which again drives me crazy on products these days, right? I want to know that your net weight was the right size, right? I want to know that if this is the craft I want to be in packaging, I know things that have to be there. I know things that work, but I also have different ideas that I can show, right? Because if you show me that your round 1 was kind of design A, version 1, version 2, version 3, so you didn't really have 3 different ideas, you just kind of had variations of the same idea, then I'm like, well, maybe this person just needs more hand holding, right? Maybe this person needs a little bit more direction. But if I see someone who says, hey, my round 1, I had these 3 very different ideas, and I'm like, okay, now I'm impressed. Now I know that I can kind of nit and pick and choose and kind of see what it is that makes you who you are.
You were saying coming up, your own ideas doesn't have to be actual paid work. But I see a lot of people online saying, don't do free work. What's your thought on doing that type of work?
I mean, I will be the first one to tell you, I never wanted to do free work. I don't think I ever have, right? I think that like with anything today, you're not going to go to a store. No one's going to give you anything for free, right? You're not going to go to get your hair done and not pay for it, right? Like you have to pay people for their time, right? And so I think that, like I said, show who you are, whether that's through beautiful finished work, because you've been in this industry for a very long time, like myself, and you can just have this like polished portfolio out there. But if you're new, like I said, be humble, right? Show the things you've worked on. Show me that you have the style. Show me that you have the craft, and show me that you have range, right? Because there's some designers who are like, well, I only do very illustrative, flowy designs. Well, great. But unless I have a project or a brand that's flowy and illustrative, then I won't work. I can't work with you, but that's all your style is. But if I can see, okay, I have modern and minimal. I have flowy and illustrative. I have, I don't know, crafty and handmade. I'm like, okay, this person has range. I can really use this person for a variety of projects. And like I said, if you want to build your book because you don't have the clients today and you do, like I said, pick something out there and redo it, that's not free work. You're not giving it to that client. You're just doing it to showcase who you are in your craft. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that many times in my book, in the past.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I think sometimes young designers get confused where they're like, they see designers like, you can't do free work. You're not giving this to the brand. You're developing it for yourself. Yes, nobody's paying for you to do it, but you have to, you have to dig in and really do the work.
But if you have no work and no clients, then occupy your time learning, right? Yeah. Occupy your time by learning new tricks on Illustrator, right? Learning how to, you use different tools, right? Because at the end of the day, when you do finally get hired, you'll be like, oh, I tried this thing and I know I can make this illustration so much better, right? Because I've learned these tricks by doing some of these projects that may not have been paid projects, but it was just more of kind of a, hobby moment.
What's the one thing that design education can change today that will improve the chances of these designers getting out and actually being hired?
It's funny because I think about sort of people talk about college a lot, right? And design schools and the different classes that we took. And the one thing that I feel like design schools don't prepare you for is the amount of changes and the amount of curveballs that get thrown at you, right? When you're on this side. So whether it's like, the client suddenly changing strategy and you're already in round 3 and you're like, wait, what? You got to start from scratch, right? I think there is a lot that you can learn and be humble in this process, and just know that a lot of these decisions or feedback or things you're hearing from the client, it's not personal. Like, yes, while this is beautiful art that you're creating for them, it a lot of the times it has nothing to do with who you are as a person, right? Or the thing that you've completed. It's because it doesn't fit their budget. Their strategy has changed. Their goals have changed, right? And so I think if design schools could prepare you more for these curveballs being thrown at you as being something not personal, but a business decision for the client, you're going to end up kind of having thicker skin. And I think the one thing about being on the agency side, you grow that thick skin pretty quickly, because whether it's, you've done 5 designs, you're showing to your creative director, and that person's like, this is garbage, start from scratch, and you go back to the drawing board, or you present to the client and they say no. And like I said, you dig in why it's a no and you learn from that. That's what this industry is about. Like, you just can't take things too personally.
And it's funny because sometimes you do show that to the client and the client's like, no. And in your mind, you're just like, but I've solved it. Like, this is correct.
Right.
The client doesn't know. You never say this, but you're just like, oh, I love this so much. But you can't fall in love with your work. Your work is not yours. It's for the client, it's for the brand.
It's for a purpose. Yeah. I think we've all seen those TikTok videos of someone, let's design a logo, right? And they show you like, boom, boom, boom. It's 30 seconds. And they go from an idea to a fully finished brand guidelines, right? All those beautiful imagery. Yes, that process takes months, right? And yes, there's a beautiful TikTok video, and you think, these days, I assume a lot of designers think like, oh, I'm going to have that one idea, I'm going to present it, the client's going to love it, and I'm going to get paid. That's just not reality. There's so many iterations and so many steps in between. And that final TikTok video you're seeing is literally the building of the brand guidelines, which is the very last step after months and months of work.
Yeah, and years sometimes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Monika. I appreciate you being on here. What's the best place somebody can find and learn more about you?
Yeah, you can visit my website. So it's monikacascone.com, and I'm sure you'll share a link. And
Absolutely.
Like I said, I love working with brands. I'm trying to figure out kind of what next steps are for me. I love challenger brands. I love smaller brands. I love brands that have a different point of view, better for you brands. Sustainability is something I'm very passionate about. So yeah, hit me up. I'd love to chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and do us a favor to follow us and leave a comment, any questions for Monika on down below.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.